Break it down very simply. Whenever someone says yes to you, selling has happened. Simple.
Hello friends, welcome back to Brainpan Talks. I am Krishanu Datta, Creative Director of Brainpan Studio. And we are here in conversation today with Mr. Manish Puri, Business Coach. Hello sir,
Hi.
how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So, we're going to talk about sales today. I've always been interested in the entire sales process, sir. I've seen people come to us offering their products, offering their services. I've always been intrigued by their behavior, their demeanor. So, is it at all possible for you to summarize the entire sales process in a few minutes?
Okay, so I'm not sure if I understand the questions. Let me just test understand.
Sure.
You want me to describe the entire sales process in the next few minutes?
Yes,
Like A to Z?
A to Z. Is it at all possible?
Yeah, sure. It is possible, and I'll have to think on my feet. So, if I was to summarize the entire sales process, I would say it has roughly about 7 steps,
Okay.
right? And it's no coincidence that most good things have 7 steps to them. I'm sure you've heard 7
Yes.
steps, right?
Yes.
So, the first thing is, and it's not a step really, it's a prerequisite.
Okay.
The first thing for any salesperson to have is conviction in its products or services.
Right, it's very important.
If I'm not convinced about what I'm offering to a customer, frankly, I shouldn't be there.
Right.
Because the very aspect of building trust comes from my conviction.
Absolutely.
And my conviction in the product or the service comes from the fact that the product itself has a keen differentiator. I believe differentiators inspire trust
Right.
in the product.
Right.
And if I have something like that, I'm just that much more ready in my mind, conceptually, for me to be able to go out there and talk to the customer.
Yeah,
I'd say that's step 1.
that makes sense.
Yes.
Right.
Step 2 would be to completely research the customer,
Okay. Yes.
which means if I'm coming to make a pitch in your organization, I must really know what your organization does.
Know your customer.
Absolutely. I must know what the organization does. I must know what the organization has in terms of challenges for the future. I must know its product. I must know its services. And in my time when I used to be a salesman, it was really tough because the country had not really moved digitally as much as it has today. So I had to go to organizations and find this out physically myself.
Right.
But today, with your social media, absolutely buzzing, with platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook, and so on and so forth, it really is very simple to find out about the organization.
It's easier than before.
Yeah. You just need to go to the website. You need to find out who the key people are. You may even be able to find out who all are the people involved in the entire decision-making process, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
And how does that help? Well, that helps because if you are armed with all the information, it's easier for you to make a pitch to the customer.
Right.
It's easier much before the pitch to get the interest of the customer, which I will talk about, in a separate
Yes.
webcast.
Yes.
Because it's a subject by itself.
Right.
So step 1, I would say, is
Conviction.
absolute conviction. Step
Yes.
2 is gathering as much information as you can about the customer.
Right.
Step 3, I would say, is qualifying the customer into a prospect.
Okay. So what is the difference between a customer and a prospect, if you can just explain it?
So everybody could be a customer,
Okay.
but every customer need not be a prospect.
Okay. Could you just put an example? How do you?
Sure. So I'm a business coach.
Right.
For me, every entrepreneur is a prospective customer
Okay.
because I believe that everybody can do with a coach.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. But can I qualify everyone as a prospect yet?
Okay.
Answer is no.
No, not everyone probably.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So the qualification of a prospective customer to a prospect
Right.
is what I would say is step 3.
So there is a journey.
Absolutely.
So
I knock your door, I come to you,
Okay.
I engage you in a conversation, and during the conversation, I find out if you really are a prospect for me today.
right.
That is qualification of a prospect. If you're a prospect but you're going to buy anything from me after 1 year, then you're not really a prospect, right?
Not an immediate one.
Absolutely. And something that distant in the future, well, I don't want to work on that today because my time is precious.
Right.
So I qualify you into a prospect. That would be step
3.
3,
Okay.
right?
Very well. Right.
Step 4, after I've qualified you into a prospect, I then make an approach to you.
Okay.
By approach, I mean that I start to pitch what I have in mind for you.
Okay.
Right? So I engage you in a conversation. I get to know more about who you are, what you do, what are the gaps right now, and how can I bridge those gaps in a manner that is extremely profitable to you, extremely value filled for you. That process is approach.
Right.
Right? I approach you with a value proposition.
Right.
All right? So that is step number
4.
Absolutely. Step 5 is negotiate. Simple.
Okay.
Negotiation. I've done the approach. I've given you a rough outline of what it would be like in terms of a solution. And it's not like you're going to say, oh, great. I've been thinking about this all the time. Thank you so much for proposing this to me, and let's go ahead.
Yeah, you will always.
That never happens.
Yeah.
You will negotiate. You will go back and forth,
Right.
and so on and so forth.
Right.
And in the process of negotiation comes objection handling.
Right.
And objections are of 3 kinds.
Okay. Interesting.
Right? A misunderstanding is an objection.
Right. Definitely.
Right? A perceived drawback is an objection.
Okay. Perceived by the prospect. Right.
A doubt is an objection.
Right.
So misunderstanding, doubt, and a perceived drawback, these 3 are your broad kind of objections. And I will not describe them to you because that's a separate session altogether.
We will do that in.
Absolutely. But all
Next
this is a
episodes,
part
yes.
of negotiation.
Right. So,
So that becomes a step number
5.
Absolutely. Okay. After step 5 is step 6, and after negotiation is closing.
Right. You have a positive feedback. Right.
Yeah, so based on all that has happened so far, you close. You
Right.
attempt a close.
Right.
All right. And this is by far the most powerful part of the entire process because unless you close, nothing's going to happen.
Of course.
And this is also where most salespeople shy away.
Okay.
Right? So,
But why? Like, why do they shy away?
because it's a pointed question.
That you need to close the deal.
Yeah, it's a pointed question to ask somebody, can we go ahead now and sign on the dotted line? You are asking a question of which the answer is either a yes or a no.
So it's like the step where you finally establish trust enough that the client is signing your paper and giving you the deal.
Let's just say it's a step where you will know whether you have established trust or not.
Right. So that's
Because
your,
if he says yes, then
Yeah.
he trusts you enough to say yes. Otherwise, you'll need to rework on all that you've done so far. So that's closing.
that's the close.
That's closing, and again, it's a separate subject, which
Right.
I will cover, at a later date. But then, yeah, closing is a very powerful thing to do, and as the famous phrase about closing is, ABC, always be closing.
Always be closing.
The best way to time your close is to close too often. But then more about that in the session on closing.
Yes.
Right. So that's step number
6.
6. Step 7 is really when you've got it in your hand, when you've got the agreement to go ahead in your hand,
Right.
when the customer has signed on the dotted line,
Right.
when you have something tangible to which you can take back to your organization, which you can take back to your decision maker and say, this is the dotted line. This is where the customer has signed, and along with that, we have the advances.
Yes.
Right? So that's what is the testimony of the fact that you've closed effectively.
Right.
So yes, I would say these are the 7 steps, and as per my agreement with you, I'll be talking about each one of them separately.
Of course.
Right? Does that answer your question?
Yes, pretty much so, because I did not know that it was such an elaborate process.
Oh, yes?
I thought that, I meet someone, I talk, and the deal is done.
Right.
Either it's done, or it's not done.
And I must add something. While these are only 7, but if I were to break down each one of them further, there's a whole lot. It's not just 7. There's a whole lot. So I've just described each one of them on a very broad basis.
Right.
Right. But
Right.
just imagine that each one of them has a drop-down menu, and you have
Okay.
things in each. Right. So
That's-
it's a little more than just going out there, shaking the hand of the customer, and walking out. There's a lot that happens between shaking the hand of the customer and getting that yes from the customer.